I fell out of love with Godzilla. Now, before you freak out thinking this is another one of those monster vs. bad videos that are popping up after -1, you don't need to worry. This is not one of those videos. This is a very personal story and it does have a very hopeful ending. But we do have a lot to cover first, and to explain why I fell out of love, we need to talk about how I fell in love with this character. So we have to jump back about 12-ish years to 6 or 7-year-old me. I loved many things as a child. Sharks, trains, dinosaurs, but I knew nothing of Godzilla. My dad had grown up loving Godzilla. He would watch TV runs of King Kong vs. Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Megalon, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla when they would come on back in the 70s. While he wasn't the super fan that I would become, it was likely his hype for the 2014 film back in 2012 that finally made him introduce me and my brother to Godzilla. It was either Blockbuster or a local video store, but we'd come home with King Kong vs. Godzilla, and from then, everything was set in place. I loved King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's such a fun and goofy film. My 7-year-old self just loved it, and now grown up, I find more things to love that I just couldn't see before. It's actually just a great film, and would soon be followed by Godzilla 2000, Tokyo SOS, and of course the 2012 teaser for Godzilla 2014. My hype and interest in the character were at an all-time high leading up to the 2014 film. I would watch a few more films in the meantime: Godzilla vs. Megalon, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and other Toho classics like King Kong Escapes. But my holy grail was Godzilla Final Wars, a film I wouldn't see for another year or two, and we'll get to it eventually. My dad would also get this Godzilla figure for me, and this would send me down a rabbit hole, looking for countless characters in toy form. But back to the big thing, Godzilla 2014. Second grade me was beyond hyped for this film, and I saw it multiple times in theaters, and I absolutely loved it. 2014 becoming one of my favorites of all time. The new monsters, the fights, and Godzilla, it was perfect. I would call the 5 years between 2014 and King of the Monsters my golden age for Godzilla. Eventually, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah were confirmed for the sequel, and Godzilla vs. Kong was announced not long after. This was the time to be a fan. I ventured into the action figure world with NECA. I made my own little fan films, and I bought my first SH Monster Arts. Leading up to King of the Monsters, I caught up on every Godzilla film, including Final Wars. And I've got to say, in all honesty,
it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
I really don't like this film, but a certain aspect would leave a huge impact on me that I wouldn't even know about for years to come. Toho would get back into Godzilla films, and while I really didn't care for Shin Godzilla and my patience for the anime trilogy ran thin, none of it mattered to me. King of the Monsters was probably my most hyped film of all time, and with those expectations, nothing could prepare me for the disappointment that the film would bring. May 31st, 2019, a day that any Godzilla fan will remember. Godzilla King of the Monsters released in theaters with mixed reception. Fans loved it and everyone else being split. I unfortunately was not in love with it. I saw it for its Thursday previews on the 30th and left the theater feeling underwhelmed. So underwhelmed I saw it again that night and twice more before it left theaters. Something about it felt so off, and it took me months to place why I didn't like it. In hindsight, King of the Monsters is like the film embodiment of an identity crisis. It can't decide what it wants to be: an action-packed love letter to the character or an emotional character piece, a big dumb monster movie or a reinvention of the character's lore. King of the Monsters just can't decide, and it can't do all of them either. I was so disappointed because I wanted more for these characters than this watered down mess of a film. Watching it over and over made me question why I even loved the character, and whether that love came from what was actually on screen or what could have been. I rewatched so many films to try and recapture the magic, but I just couldn't. As stupid as it sounds, this film broke me. Not much changed after King of the Monsters. 2019 through 2021 was a dead period. At this time, I would get into more of my non-Godzilla interests. I really enjoyed Godzilla vs. Kong to my surprise, finding the fun in its absurdity. And while I'm meh on it now, I did enjoy Godzilla Singular Point. The hype died down, 2022 was quiet, and 2023 is when I pretty much dropped the character completely. The truth, I found new interests. Where Godzilla felt like it had been stuck in one place forever, never changing, these new interests felt semi-mature, like I could actually grow with them. Those interests led to me starting establishing thrills back in November 2022. I wanted a place to talk about all those things that, realized it or not at the time, had mostly stemmed from Godzilla in some way, shape, or form. While I can't really pin the theme park stuff that is a major backbone of this channel, the film, music, and soon-to-be figures were all influenced by Godzilla. Establishing Thrills was a way to break free from Godzilla and the hold it had on my previous channel. Establishing Thrills is me, not any of the topics I cover, me as a person, and that's what mattered most. And now, over a year later, my channel has exceeded all expectations, and I'm so proud of what I've been able to do. And all my viewers who continue to tune in despite my messy upload schedule and my dozens of unrelated topics. You have all made this journey worth it, and I want to pursue this channel for as long as possible. And with that, Godzilla just faded away, seemingly playing its role in my life. And for a time, I was okay with that. But something changed. Leading up to Godzilla -1, I could not have been any less hyped. My interest in the character was at an all-time low, and I really wasn't in a rush to see the movie. I only saw it after its week-long run was confirmed, and I obviously had to see it in theaters or else I'd be waiting a year to actually catch up like I did with Shin Godzilla. And I sat down in the theater expecting a fine enough film because while I really didn't care, I wasn't expecting a horrible film. And I just walked out blown away. Godzilla -1 delivered such a raw and emotional story that I just didn't see coming. Jaw-dropping visuals, emotionally investing characters, and a haunting portrayal of Godzilla. For better or for worse, Godzilla -1 has set a new standard for kaiju media. I've never been so emotionally invested in a monster movie. I saw it 7 times in theaters, that's how much I loved it. And because of it, I slowly grew interested in the character again. Later that month, I ended up buying my first 2 monster arts in over a year at the Tamashii store in Times Square, Godzilla 1954 and the Hedorah 50th anniversary set. I pulled many of my figures out of storage and added many more to my collection, and while Godzilla x Kong The New Empire really disappointed me, it didn't change the fact that -1 made me remember why I loved the character, and it finally made me feel like it was time to make this video. This video has been in the works for over a year now, way before the Dr. Skipper video and the poorly researched videos that would follow it. This was always a very personal subject and video for me to make, but I would say this is my most personal video to date and that I might ever make. And -1 just gave it the happy ending I always wanted it to have. So now what? It cannot be understated how much of an impact Godzilla as a character has left on me. It has inspired me to write and create stories of my own, to create my own pieces of art and to create the videos on this very channel. Through Godzilla, I discovered my taste in music, which would lead me to discovering my favorite band and getting the opportunity to meet them and leave my mark on their legacy. But most important of all, Godzilla led me down the path to meeting my best friend, someone I would have never met if I never got into the character. Godzilla has shaped my childhood and continues to influence me in ways I didn't even realize. And with that, let's just cross out that title. Because while I fell out of love, this is a new beginning, and I'm choosing to revisit every Godzilla film to rediscover why I originally fell in love with the character. Starting in just a week or two when I will return to the Monsterverse for its 10th anniversary in 10 Years of Destruction, the Monsterverse in retrospect. In this journey, I plan to revisit every Godzilla film in as much detail as possible, and with that, I think it's time to wrap this up. This character is one of the most versatile in the history of cinema, and I'm hoping with my newfound maturity that I can once again fall in love with Godzilla.